Salve, quo modo te habes? Si tu valeas, ego valeo. Conspectus Grammaticus, capituli tertii decimi, pars altera ad est. Quid in hoc inest? Videamus. In this video, we're going to look at parts 3 and 4 of our Conspectus Grammaticus. That is, Declinatio Quinta et ablativus temporis atque accusativus temporis. These are two new uses of the ablative and accusative case. It's going to be important because they both relate to time that we take our own time and examine carefully when to use one or the other. These two concepts can be easily confused with each other. So again, it's important that we look at these carefully, that we take a bit of time to explore and understand what makes them unique and what makes them different. Okay, let's talk about our first subject in the video, the fifth declension. Here we can see our paradigm noun in the fifth declension, dies, diei, masculine. What I mean by paradigm noun is that all nouns in the fifth declension are going to decline just like dies, diei. So if we learn how dies declines, we know how every other fifth declension noun is going to decline. If we look at the chart, we can see the stem, D, a long bar, and the case ending. I've added this long bar just to distinguish what's the stem and what's the case ending. Just for now, we'll remove it in a few seconds. If we look at the case endings, we can see that the nominativus singularis est es, accusativus singularis em, genitivus singularis ei, dativus singularis ei, et ablativus singularis e. Now for the plurals. Nominativus et accusativus pluralis es, genitivus pluralis erum, et dativus et ablativus pluralis ebus. One quick note while we're here. Nouns in the fifth declension are either masculine or feminine. There are no neuter nouns in the fifth declension. Here's dies without the long bars to mark the stem from the case endings. So dies, diem, diei, diei, die, that's the singular. Dies, dies, dierum, diebus, et diebus, that's the plural. Take a minute and look over this chart. What patterns do you recognize? What can you see that looks familiar from other declensions that we've already learned? Keep in mind that this is Latin's fifth and final declension. So you're now learning the last of the declensions that Latin has to offer. You should hopefully be able to recognize some patterns. So take a minute, look it over. You can even compare your notes and see what you can recognize that looks familiar. Good luck. Okay, hopefully you recognized at least a few things. In the singular, that M in the accusative looks pretty familiar. We've seen an M in the accusative singular every single time that we've looked at the accusative singular in every declension outside the third. The third sometimes doesn't have an M in the accusative singular for neuter nouns. However, the good news is there are no neuter nouns in the fifth declension, so we're always going to see an M in the accusative singular. Now that genitive may have looked a little bit confusing. Diei? That's new. That's weird. But if we remember the first declension, it also has a compound of two vowels in the genitive singular, feminae or puellae. So perhaps that rings a bit of a bell. Maybe not. The dative singular, diei, that long I, hopefully that looks a bit more familiar. We've seen a long I added in the dative singular to our demonstrative pronouns, to our third declension, and to our fourth declension nouns. And so by now, it's maybe getting to feel a little familiar. In the ablative singular, we have something even more familiar, which is a long vowel on its own as the case ending. We take that long E and we add it directly onto the stem. At this point, we know all of our ablative singulars always feature a single vowel. In the first declension, it was a long A, a long O in the second. In the third, it was a short E, and in the fourth, it was a long U. Now, here in the fifth, we have a familiar pattern. We have that long E. Okay, let's look at the plural. Our endings here are ace and ace in the nominative and singular. That looks exactly like, that's right, the third declension plural. And it is. It's totally the same. And so the issue here perhaps is that we can frequently confuse the nominative singular with the nominative plural. Just remember you can always tell the difference by looking at the verb. If the noun is indeed nominative and it has the same form in the singular and the plural, the verb will tell you whether that subject is singular or plural. In the genitive, dierum, hopefully the rum part looked familiar from the first and second declension. Similarly, dierum ends um, just like in the third and the fourth declension. And lastly, ebus. Our endings ebus in the ablative and the dative plural looks a lot like the ibus endings we had in the third and fourth declensions. So again, hopefully this is a pretty familiar pattern. Okay, so the fifth declension is important, but one of our really tricky topics this chapter is the ablativus temporis atque accusativus temporis. So let's take a minute and talk about those. One way that Latin can express when something happens is to use a time word in the ablative or the accusative. The Romans wanted to talk about time and when something would occur just the way we do. When is lunch? How long is vacation going to last for? These are questions that involve time and require time constructions to communicate their ideas effectively. Two ideas that we're going to learn that communicate time ideas are the accusativus temporis and the ablativus temporis. Again, these two concepts are easily confused because they both relate to time, so we want to be careful to distinguish when to use one or when to use the other. The accusativus temporis answers a question like, quote, for how many? For how long? The accusativus temporis signifies duration and answers questions like, for how long did something occur? In the Bible, for example, it says that it rained for 40 days and 40 nights to cause the flood that lifted Noah's Ark. Here we can say it rained quadraginta dies noctesque, for 40 days and nights. Note that the phrase for 40 days and 40 nights answers a question like, quote, for how long, for how many? It rained for 40 days and for 40 nights. As such, the accusativus temporis always indicates duration, an action across a series of points in time. The rain fell, that's our action, for 40 separate and conjoined days and nights, for 40 continuous days and nights. It never signifies then a point in time, a single point in time, like a single night. Instead, it's always a series of points in time. And so the accusativus temporis oftentimes is used in the plural, like, I slept for 8 hours last night, I feel great. This concept, the accusativus temporis, is similar to how in works as a preposition. When you go into the villa, in villam, you move across a series of points in space. You're outside the villa, you're on the threshold entering the villa, then you're in it. So in villam involves multiple different points in space. And so we use the accusative to indicate duration, motion across space. The accusativus temporis is the same, but indicates motion across time. Now let's look at the ablativus temporis. The ablativus temporis answers a question like quando, at what single point in time, when? This indicates a single point in time and answers questions like, at what time did something occur? When does this occur? The train comes by at night. Nocte. If you go back and look at our previous video, you can see that in some of the ordinal numbers questions, I use this phrase, hoc mense. For example, dies natalis Americanus hoc mense est. America's birthday occurs in this month, hoc mense. That's an ablative of time construction. When does it occur? It occurs in this month. Now you might say that a month is a very large point in time. It's a very large expanse of time. Isn't that almost close to 40 days and 40 nights? But I'm saying that the event, the 4th of July, America's birthday, occurs at a single point in time in one month. In this month, not in that month. And so it occurs once in this month, and we use a singular idea, hoc mense, in this month to express that. It occurs over multiple different months, right? Okay, so the ablative of time never signifies duration, but always locates an event or an action in a specific point in time, a specific moment, or within a specific frame of reference, like a month. Think of this like the ablative preposition in. Julia in horto est. Julia is in the garden. Where is she? She's located in the garden. The garden is not something she occupies entirely. She's not filling up the whole garden, right? That'd be Monster Julia. Instead, she occupies a single point within the larger space that is the garden. Just like the 4th of July is in July. It's located in that month. Hoc mense. Okay, so this is the main idea of our ablativus temporis. When does something occur? At what point in time? The last thing I want to say here before we move on to our next video is, what's a time word? I say both the accusativus temporis and the ablativus temporis use time words to signify when something happens. Well, here's 2 columns of words we're learning this chapter. One contains only time words. The other contains no time words. Which column contains the time words? Okay, that's right. The left column, containing words like aistos, where, dies, and vesper, it contains words like season words, day words, or even times of day words, words like vesper, evening. These words can all be used to say when something happens, like month, or summer, or at night, or for how long something happens, like for the whole spring, or for 5 hours. The right column, however, does not contain time words. And so to use the ablativus and accusativus temporis without prepositions, we just need a time word. Okay, next video we're going to explore these concepts in a bit more detail. So why don't you head there, and I'll see you soon.